Welcome to Tavern Talks. Today we talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Tate, what's our topic?
The movie.
The movie?
Honor Among Thieves. Which is such a stupid title. There is no Honor Among Thieves. That's the whole point.
Except for when you watch the movie, it makes a lot of sense.
But there's no Honor Among Thieves.
We'll see.
We're going to talk about the movie. I wasn't actually able to go watch it. This guy was, though.
It was a good movie.
He invited me, but I had to work. It was kind of sucked. But he was able to watch it, so I wanted to interrogate him a little bit.
Right, and that's what we're talking about today. Roll clip.
Is it with you with the after everything? First thing I wanted to ask you about with the movie is the general plot. I don't really know anything about. So this is just purely a comparison to the game.
Mm-hmm.
This is purely a comparison to the game. I'm just curious how it works out. So the first thing I was really curious about, because there was the whole thing with the owlbear, and the fans were divided on that. Fans of the game were divided on the owlbear. They wanted to. Some people were like, "Oh, it's cool. They should be allowed to do it." And some people were like, "No, that's not accurate. They wouldn't be able to do that because owlbears are monstrosities and not beasts. And since it's not a beast, you can't change into it." So I was curious if there's anything else that happened in the movie that wasn't accurate to the game.
Well, on the subject of wild shape, I'm pretty sure as you wild shape, you can only turn into one creature, and you can stay that creature for a couple of hours based off of how long you've been a druid. So with her wild shape, she's definitely got a lot of levels in druid, so she has the ability to be in her wild shape for a long period of time. But she's doing in this escape scene where she's escaping from this vault that she was trying to stake out, where they have all the gold that they want to steal. She eventually turns into multiple creatures within her wild shape. Whereas I'm pretty sure rules is written, once you pick your creature, you stay that creature, and it's another use of your wild shape to change that creature.
How many uses of wild shape would you have generally?
4, maybe 5 at that point.
How many times did she change? How many creatures did she change into?
It felt like a lot.
Okay. So she's used a natural number of wild shapes in a short period of time.
Right.
Okay. Was there anything else that didn't really work as well as didn't work as far as the game rules go?
Not a whole lot.
So the movie itself was pretty accurate to the game then in that case.
I would say everywhere else it wasn't necessarily needing to be more accurate. And the thing about like the wild shape, her as a druid, she should have spells, but the character in the show had no spells at all. So I think that was a very good compensation and balancing out this character is like the druid can wild shape, and that's what they did with each of the characters in their classes. They didn't say, oh, the druid can cast spells and wild shape, the bard can cast spells and sing, the sorcerer can cast spells, and then you're like, well, why would anybody be a sorcerer when you can be a druid and cast spells, or be a bard and cast spells? Because you get added bonuses to it. So they really made each of the characters do their thing, like their main thing for their class, and drop the extra stuff. So somebody who's going into it with no Dungeons and Dragons experience will not be bogged down by information overload for watching a 2-hour movie.
So speaking of the party and the characters and their classes, what were all the characters in it? It was a racing class.
Mm-hmm. So Edgin, our main character played by Chris Pine, he is our human bard. His abilities is that he had a reinforced lute that he can whack people with.
That's his ability? Just his ability?
Yeah, he can whack people with his lute, and he can play the lute, and he made plans. That's what his role did. He encouraged the party while they were down on their luck, because they're thinking, oh, we can't do this. Sorry, Edgin, this is too hard. They're complaining, they're griping, and he's telling them, hey, stick with it. We can do this.
Real leader type.
Yeah, real leader type. But not really anything in the middle of combat. But like it's really hard to show that bardic inspiration mid-combat.
Okay, I gotcha. What about we know there's a druid.
Mm-hmm. We got a druid. She's a tiefling. I didn't realize that when I was watching the trailer for it. I mean, it makes sense. She had horns, but I was thinking like you got Keyleth from Vox Machina with her antlips.
We already talked about the druid and all the wild shape stuff. I know there's a sorcerer in it as well.
Yeah, you got Simon, who's the sorcerer. He's really fun because he doesn't have a lot of like spell casting experience. He's got very limited use to magic, but he's got really big bursts of good magic, and he contributes that to his wild magic ability. So he's probably a wild magic sorcerer.
Okay, that makes sense.
He's a really cool character. He's the one that recognizes all the magic items. You could say that he's got identify, and he could identify all of the magic items because he's like, oh, that's the hither thither.
Hither thither?
Yeah, he's like, you make a portal here, hither, and then thither, and then they can cross through the portal, and now it's an item that they use a lot.
Really?
In the movie. And then you have the barbarian.
Oh, the barbarian too. Okay.
Yeah, Holga's great. I love her. She's got the best jokes in the whole movie. She's like, oh, why don't you just magic it? He's like, magic can't solve all problems. I just explained that. She's great. She's like,
She brings a good dumb barbarian.
You're not a lot of fun, are you?
yeah, but she's really smart in the sense that she's like able to go along with the plan, pull things off. But she's very passionate, and that's what we want to see from our barbarians.
Okay.
Like really passionate. They're willing to let their rage guide them through. She was definitely their fighter, like their martial class, because she would go in, she took out huge groups of enemies with her axe, and then she'd always drop her axe and then start punching and knocking everybody out, throwing them around the room. And she was insane, really good at impromptu fighting.
I already asked you if there's anything that wasn't very accurate. It sounds like it was just the wild shape stuff, but there was a good reason for it, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Was there anything that was like super accurate? 'Cause I'm thinking of, for example, the scene where it was in one of the teasers where they resurrected a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what like Speak with Dead or
Right.
Was that what they used Speak with
It
Dead?
was like
or?
Speak with Undead.
Okay, Simon, how does this work? All right. Once the dead man is revived, we can ask him 5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Why 5 questions?
I don't know, that's just how it works.
Seems arbitrary.
Can we get ominous, please?
I would say pretty much lore-wise, there were a lot of things lore-wise where I was like, yes, that is like the game.
Do you have any examples? Not getting too deep into the lore, because none of us have time for that.
You got the Lord of Neverwinter, his name is Neverember. They had him in there. I know that there's multiple Lords of Neverwinter. I mean, like, Neverember is the big Lord,
Right.
and so that's probably why he was such a big deal. But I feel like the bad guy, the antagonist, Forger, he becomes Lord of Neverwinter as Neverember is ill. He's like you know when somebody becomes king, but they're not real king regent.
Yeah, like Denethor from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he's just a Lord Regent. Like, I don't think that would have been able to happen necessarily with the normal lore of Neverwinter because they have so many lords that are always vying for power. They have the Harpers, which is a group of like good do-gooders. They lend out a helping hand and ask for nothing in return. They're brought up a lot in the show. Our main character Edgin used to be a Harper and then stopped when his wife died.
Ah.
You have the Emerald Conclave, which is a group that was brought up. The Thanes and the Red Wizards, I thought they were really interesting antagonists that they brought into this. I was very impressed with the amount of information that they brought in with the lore without like overdoing it and giving us info dumps.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the issues like with Kingdom Hearts. There's so much lore in Kingdom Hearts that you can't just play 1, 2, and 3 to understand the story. You have to play like, pretty much every side game to know what's going on in 3. So they did a very good job of giving you what you needed to understand, but not giving you too much. Is that kind of the consensus?
Right. And they did a really good job showing what it feels like to be at a D&D game table.
Really?
Yeah. Everybody had a backstory, and everybody got to share their backstory at some point. And that was really fun for me to watch because it was just like everybody explains their backstory eventually when you're playing at the table with your friends.
Right.
There was also a lot of flashbacks to like essential lore that was necessary for them to get all the equipment that they needed for their heist.
Okay.
And that was really cool because that's what the DM does a lot at a table. They explain all this stuff retroactively. It's like, oh, there was this big battle area. This is an important forge that was built that was now abandoned.
I want to go back a little bit to that one encounter you're saying with the wild shaping trying to escape.
Yeah.
So one of the things I know you love doing is you love encounters. You love thinking of cool new encounters. Like you have like a million one-shots you have planned. That maybe you guys will see on the channel. You know, if you like and subscribe. You know,
Right.
You might see some of those cool one-shots. Or was there any encounter at all that you think would be really fun to run at an actual D&D table?
The really awesome thing about this show is that they were always trying to solve problems. Every once in a while, they'll get in a fight, they'll get in a scrap, and pretty much what would happen is the barbarian would get them out of the fight, and then everybody else is problem solving. I would say, like for them, it was definitely their trying to use whatever resources that they had in front of them. There's one scene with this huge maze when they're fighting an arena that is really cool, and the way that they get out of the maze I think was super impressive, and that definitely switched the encounter up on its head.
No spoilers, right?
No spoilers. That's all I would say. I just think that nothing happened where I was thinking this is a very unique encounter.
Okay, so nothing particularly nothing interesting enough that you'd want to play it.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Nothing was particularly unique or groundbreaking. It was pretty.
Right. It wasn't like the acid rising in that scene from Vox Machina.
That was cool.
Mm-hmm.
We talked extensively about that,
right.
Before we started this whole channel thing.
Right, and they don't have any of these very intense naval battles where the whole map is continually moving around them. They split up the party at one point where everybody's off going their own direction, and that is when they all get captured.
Okay.
So I guess that's a unique feature, or a unique encounter that you can do. But it definitely shows what happens to the party when the party splits up.
Yeah, you're not meant to split up. So it sounds like there's a lot more than just combat, though. It sounds like a lot of the encounters they had were figuring stuff out rather than just.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes me think of when we did Blue Gen Express. When you did Blue Gen Express, then you gave us an entire session of just planning.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that's similar? That'd be a similar thing to what they did with their heist?
I would say 100% just like that, because Blue Gen Express, you guys, if you've listened to a lot, and we've only talked about it very roughly so you can speculate, but Blue Gen Express was a heist campaign. And so there was a lot of time for you guys to make plans. There was a lot of time for you to execute these plans. And that's what made it different than your normal campaign, where it's just fight, going through a dungeon until you finally make it to the end. Maybe a puzzle to thrown into there. But I would say it was very, what is next? We got plan A, we got plan B, we got plan C, which is plan A, and we got plan D, which is plan B.
The last thing I really wanted to ask you about this, unless you had any other final thoughts before I ask this.
No, ask away.
Was it a good movie?
It was a very good movie.
Out of 10, what would you put it?
I would say definitely a 10. It is probably the best movie I've seen this year.
Wow, okay.
I would say it's better than Ant-Man and the Wasp, maybe because Ant-Man and the Wasp is a sequel. And the problem with Ant-Man and the Wasp, you have to have a lot of background knowledge in order to really understand what's happening in that. That automatically puts it down a little bit. Other movies I've watched this year, I've watched a good handful of movies. It's really hard for me to do like an over-top comparison right on the spot. But the movie had a great setup, great comedy, great action. I would say that all the non-human creatures were ugly.
Really?
But I loved it. You know, it was like, it's so ugly, I love him. You had like the Dragonborn, and they were super huge heads that were like sitting on top of a real person's head, and the jaw moved a little bit, but it just went up and down. They definitely did not do CGI on it.
Oh, okay. So that was Lennon's take on Honor Among Thieves. You guys have any thoughts about what we talked about? Any interesting encounters or anything you thought wasn't very accurate or was super accurate in the game? Let us know in the comments.
Also, if you guys are running a heist campaign, or if you want to see us do a heist one-shot, please leave a like on this video. The more likes on this, if we get ourselves up to 100 likes, we will do a heist one-shot.
Ooh. Also, if you like, we guarantee your next roll will be a nat 20. That's what people reported to us. People who've liked our videos get nat 20s as their first roll in their next game.
And if it doesn't work, comment about it, and we will talk to our witches.
No, we have witches.
We have witches.
We keep them locked up. Were we not supposed to lock them up?
No.
Oh. Oh, shoot.
Anyways, pray for us.